Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Temple Institute Parsha class. My name is Gedalia Meyer. I'm podcasting from Ma'ale Adumim in Israel. Though it seems like a broken record, we appear to be no closer to the end of this thing than we were a few months ago, at least in Israel. Nobody knows what the best strategy is, and everybody is shooting in the dark. Here in Israel, we are entering the second or third week of the national lockdown, depending on how one counts the starting points. The official end date of this lockdown has been extended a few days after the holiday of Sukkot, but nobody knows if this is really going to be the end. It could extend indefinitely afterwards. Meanwhile, the case numbers keep going up and nobody can see the light at the end of the proverbial tunnel. Along with all this doom and gloom, we are in the midst of the so-called Hagim, the high holidays. We've done Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and now we are heading into Sukkot. This week-long holiday, the third of the package, is always a great celebration. It includes 2 official Shabbat-like days at the beginning and the end, and about 5 or 6 days in the middle, depending on if one lives in Israel or not. And those have minor restrictions, but they include all the hoopla of the rest of Sukkot. It happens that this year, both of the end days come on Shabbat itself. The first day is called simply Sukkot, while the last day is called by the combined name of Shmini Atzeret, which means something on the order of 8th day holdover, and Simchat Torah, which means rejoicing over the Torah. Outside of Israel, the first day is celebrated over 2 days, and the combination of day is divided into 2 separate days. It's all very complicated, like anything Jewish, but somehow it all works out. Because the first day of Sukkot falls on Shabbat, there is no regular parsha this week. There is a special Torah reading for Sukkot that includes all of the details about the holiday. These details really boil down to 2 major things. The first is the reason for the name of the holiday. The word Sukkot means booths. While that appears to be a rather nonchalant name for a celebration that is supposed to be such a big deal, it is what it is. The booths, as most people are familiar with this holiday know, are these structures that Jews are supposed to live in during the entire week of the holiday. In the good old days, these were types of huts, probably made out of wood or branches or pretty much anything that could do the trick. In more recent times, people have been making them out of pre-made metal frame kits or anything else that does the trick. Many people now simply have them as a semi-permanent part of their house, like on a porch or something like that. The important point is not the walls, but the material the roof is made of. It has to be made of some natural agricultural product, such as wood, bamboo, or branches. A common practice in Israel is to make it out of palm fronds. The basic idea behind all these details is that the sukkah, or booth, should be natural and simple. One should be able to see the stars through the roof, but it should contain more shade than sun. It is meant to be a throwback to the way things were at the time of the very formation of the Israelites, when they were wandering around the Sinai desert for 40 years. Whether a modern-day sukkah really fits this bill is an academic question. What really matters is that it is done correctly and that it is a place that one can truly enjoy being there and feels like it is some kind of home. The second major detail about this holiday is a bundle-like thing that contains 4 species of foliage. These 4 are listed in the Torah in a somewhat clear but slightly vague manner. Jewish tradition has it that the 4 species are, in order, a lemon-like thing called an etrog, or esrog in Ashkenazi Hebrew. This is a nearly inedible fruit that is grown in special orchards in Israel and in a few other places in the Middle East. Supposedly, there is now an etrog grove in California. The second is called a lulav. It is the beginning of a new shoot of palm frond before it begins to grow the familiar fan-like extensions that hang down. In other words, it is really a kind of stick that grows on a palm tree. The third is called a hadas. There are 3 of these in the package, so they are called hadassim, the plural for hadas. This is a branch from a myrtle bush, a low-growing shrub whose leaves tend to grow on the branches in groups of 3. The fourth is called a ravot, a thin branch of one of many species of willow that grow by water. Well, this sounds like a considerable amount of details that are really not all that necessary. For religious Jews, it is like manna from heaven. Such Jews tend to like all these details, and getting the 4 species of foliage to not only be kosher or adequate according to Jewish law, but really nice looking is a favorite practice this time of year. This has become one more thing in Judaism where a person can really go to town over something that is uniquely Jewish and has no purpose other than simply doing it right and as good as possible. Like the Sukkah, it is meant to be a throwback to biblical times when foliage like this was life itself, and celebrating the harvest meant that they would survive the winter. In addition to all this, there are a number of sideline things that tend to spice up this already spiced up holiday even more. There are Sukkah hopping groups in neighborhoods that are thickly Jewish who go from one Sukkah to another to eat, drink, schmooze, and sing. There are prayers for rain, which also starts to fall in Israel shortly after Sukkot. There is even a ceremony of banging a bundle of willow branches on the ground that comes on the second to last day of the holiday, which doesn't have any real basis or explanation other than that it was done in ancient times. In the times of the temple in Jerusalem, there were water drawing ceremonies and parades with dancing and acrobatics. It was a kind of like biblical equivalent of the modern day Mardi Gras. What does it all mean? To get to the bottom of all this, we have to look into the actual verses in the Torah that describe it all in relevant detail. After the details about the 4 species and the various offerings that are brought for the celebration, there is a kind of summing up of the whole holiday. Here's the quote. In Sukkot you shall dwell for 7 days. Every citizen of Israel shall dwell in Sukkot, in order that your generations know that in Sukkot I had the Israelites dwell when I took them out of Egypt. I am Hashem, your God. That really tells it all. This entire holiday and the accompanying ceremonies with all the hoopla exists to remind us a particular detail of the Exodus. That detail was the simple fact that they dwelled in these booth-like things during their wanderings through the desert. Future generations, for some reason, would have to know this little detail, and it is for that reason that this holiday exists. Everything else is really fine print. It has to be said right off the bat that this was really, in essence, a harvest festival. That much is made clear elsewhere in the Torah. The Sukkot thing seems to have been a way to tie things back to the Exodus and the origins of the Israelite people. Harvest festivals were standard fare throughout the world until very recently. And the fact is that they still exist today, though one would hardly know it unless one lived in a rural area. If it weren't for produce from the land, we could not survive. To celebrate the harvest is to celebrate life itself. The Torah managed to tie this universal celebration to the unique story of the Israelites. But we must ask the question as to why it is so important that future generations know that their ancestors dwelt in these booths. Who really cares how they dwelt? For that matter, who else would think they were living in anything other than some kind of portable and easy to put together structure? They couldn't have been carrying large homes around with them as they wandered. The only alternative would have been a nomadic tent, which, as it happens, is what the Torah states many times. So were these Sukkot really just tents? It does seem possible and even likely. Perhaps the way the custom evolved in Judaism was that the booth system with the roof made of foliage was the best way to recall that simple mode of life when there wasn't much difference between one's home and the earth outside. But why is it so important to remember all this? The easy answer to this question is that it is one more of the many ways of recalling the Exodus. This, as everyone knows, is a major component of Judaism. It is the whole point of Passover, and it seems to get mentioned in every possible situation in Jewish prayer. Even though it took place over 3,000 years ago, for observant Jews, it is like it happened yesterday. Reliving the experience by dwelling outside of the comfortable home is perhaps the best way to get a taste of what it was like. Whether this still works today is a matter for each individual celebrant to determine and to make happen. But there is another idea that may answer this question on a deeper level. This is the idea that on some fundamental level, this is the true way that we were supposed to live. The manner in which the Israelites lived during the Exodus period was seen, perhaps, as an ideal that can never quite be reached again, and we can only imagine it to some degree. All of our extras that we so badly seek and believe that we need so badly in life are really nothing other than glorified illusions that serve no function other than to distract us from what is truly important. This, perhaps, is what is meant by the phrase, in order that your generations know that in Sukkot I had the Israelites dwell when I took them out of Egypt. Those future generations have to know this because this is what is absolutely essential to know. This is real living and not whatever souped up version that we concoct in the future. This is life. This point cannot be more relevant than at this very moment in history. As we battle this pandemic, not knowing where and when the end lies, not knowing if we are on the right path or the wrong one, not knowing what our societies and our lives will be like when this is all finally over, we are forced to face the unsettling possibility that maybe we have been off course for quite some time. Maybe we went astray in our collective and individual lives, valuing things that were of no real value, and ignoring things that we should have paid close attention to. A sukkah, with its intended very basic and down-to-earth structure and appearance, cuts through all the nonsense and tells us what really matters. It is walls and a roof and a connection to God, to the earth, and with our past. With such a structure, we can gain a taste of what is truly essential and what is not. In a sense, it is a taste of heaven on earth. Chag Sameach. Enjoy the holiday and Shabbat Shalom.